welcome to Quick Take. I'm your host, Susie Tomanchuk, along with my great co-host, James Capps. How are you, James?
I am super great. How about yourself?
I'm great. I'm great. We talk about things that are on the minds of everyone,
That's right.
everywhere.
All of
And
the places.
so, I want to talk today about something that people talk about. If we had a shot for every time somebody brought up this term, I think that we
We'd be in
would
trouble. My liver
we'd
would
be in
not be,
trouble. We
yeah, my liver would have given up by now, as if it hasn't already, but that's not the point.
Okay, fair enough. That's another episode.
That's right.
Psychological safety. Psychological safety. And the reason it's something I want to talk about today is
hmm
I went to a virtual leadership conference, we'll say, and Amy Edmondson, I just,
hmm
from Harvard, she's the woman that coined psychological safety.
Yeah, she's a pretty bright bulb. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
pretty impressive stuff.
Yeah. So she talked about kind of her take and
hmm
why it's important and why just because you have diversity doesn't mean you have psychological safety
Yep,
and
yep.
and I think people don't understand it. So I want to talk about it today. But then right after that conference, I was coaching somebody that I want to tell you about.
Oh, please. Yeah, this is exciting.
I can tell. I can
No,
tell.
I'm
I can
super
hear
excited.
the
When you get your stories are always so good. You never know what's going to happen.
Okay, so I was talking to this leader, very senior
hmm
leader, and I just had met him responsible for a very large team. And so I was asking questions like how do you give feedback? What do you think about transparency within your organization? He goes, got it covered. I'm like, oh, tell me a little more.
Cool.
Yeah, he goes, my surveys show that everybody's really happy, get
hmm
all, 5 stars or whatever it is. And he goes, I have a weekly meeting and I have everybody in my total org, let's just tell you, over 200 people on this
Wow.
meeting.
Wow.
And he says, anybody is welcome to speak.
Mm. Yeah, that's tough. It kind of reminds me, a lot of people will have these form factors, these meetings, these structures, these things that they do every day, and they'll say, like, I need to be transparent, so that meeting will be my transparent meeting. I need to have a
Yeah.
diverse team, so these people will now be my diverse team. They're really putting the cart before the horse. I see that a lot at the people that I talk to, and
Yeah,
it's pretty common to think that they're satisfying this complex
totally.
idea with something very simple. But
Yeah, and what is that topic? Like to him, and then I asked him like, what is the dialogue in this
hmm
in this meeting? It's a project update. They're not
oh,
even
so yeah,
talking about things that
right,
are,
right,
psychologically could be
sure.
really risky.
Yeah,
And
he's not
so,
taking they're not they. It's very difficult to do that in a project status meeting,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
But anyhow,
yeah.
interesting. Yeah, I think
It,
that's a pretty common
mhm.
situation for leaders who are trying to accomplish certain things. They'll use those particular meetings or whatever in that form. So yeah, I think we should probably talk about what does that really mean and how
Yeah,
do leaders go about creating an environment where their employees do feel safe and capable of really executing.
yeah. Well, let's talk the way that Amy
hmm
Edmondson talks about psychological safety is she says psychological safety is a belief that one will not be punished or humiliated for speaking up with ideas, questions, concerns, or mistakes.
Yep.
Mistakes.
Yep. Yep.
And so it's all the way we react to and we allow for people to kind of share what's on their mind,
Right.
not just report what they're doing in their
Right. Right.
role, but how does it feel to be them in
hmm
the space that they're in?
Well, and that's for me. A lot of times, I'll have with an individual, I'll have a project status meeting, and then I'll have a different meeting that is more
Hmm.
about their career counseling,
Yeah.
their catch ups, whatever. Because it's really important, I think, that you have a separate meeting and try not to do them at the same time, because one
Mm-mm.
meeting has a certain type of dialogue pattern,
Yeah.
and the other one has a different type of dialogue pattern. And I think it's really challenging for people to switch in
Hmm.
the same meeting, and I think it does give you boundaries when you are articulating it in a good way. So, yeah, it's really hard. It's really hard to ensure that. So, Yeah, I've got a couple ideas that we could talk about how I
Yeah.
think leaders can really jump in and make sure they're doing it right.
That sounds good. I just want to also put a point on that was a really good best practice to separate it. And so
Hmm.
that's good of you to see it as a leader. But I will tell you, when I work with people and they do have something difficult to talk to their boss about, they get really anxious about
Oh,
when to
sure.
bring it up. And so I
Right.
love that
Right.
you have these two places. And
Hmm.
so you are allowing somebody to kind of have this place where they can bring
Right.
something up, which can be scary for them. And I think that's another responsibility of leaders to recognize when this is something that's high stakes for the
Hmm.
other person and react accordingly.
Right. And I think that's really my first recommendation is you need to encourage open communication, right? It
Hmm.
seems that is what that example of having separate meetings is a means to do that. And that open
Hmm.
communication means that you are open to different feedback.
Hmm.
You're allowing people the opportunity to speak in a form and forum that is appropriate for that, not a meeting of 200 people, perhaps. But
Hmm.
you've got to create that environment where people are able to speak their minds without retribution. And you've got to do it in a way that you can't just say, as we often joke, are there any questions? No, but
Hmm.
that is not a question, right? Like, if you want feedback, you have to ask specific questions. You have to look people in the eye and say, Jerry, what are your thoughts on that idea? Or Jerry, do you have an opposing point of view?
Hmm.
Creating that dialogue has got to be an active function, and I think that open environment is just going to takes every leader a lot of work.
I think that's really good, and I think that we underestimate
Hmm.
how much we need to sit in that and just
Yeah.
listen and
Hmm.
allow, like, maybe ask 2 additional questions or and really show your understanding, but allow it to kind of seep in so that you're not hearing it from your biased
Hmm. Hmm.
frame, but you're
Right.
hearing it from them so you understand it.
Well, and you have to embrace silence. That's great advice that
Mhm.
you always give. Be
Yeah.
comfortable with that pause and really elicit the feedback. And I think that's a super critical element of creating that entire open communication ecosystem.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. All right, what's number 2?
And the second one, it's really adjacent to that, but leaders have to lead by example. And so
Mm.
we have to respond to that feedback in a certain way. We have to ask for that response in a certain way. And I think what's really important too is that as leaders, we have to recognize the fact that our voices are heard by our titles. And so we can't forget how difficult it is for other people and the work that other people have to put in to have their voices heard. And so as leaders, we tend to get lazy about that and know that when I say something, people will listen. We have to create and lead by example to encourage other people to have their voices heard.
Mhm.
It's just like anything else. You forget, it's like going to the gym. If you're really in good shape, it's easy to just, go and play
Yeah.
basketball. But if you grab somebody who isn't that athletic and take them you can't expect them to play basketball great right out of the chute.
Yeah.
So these are muscles that we have to craft and we have to foster in our people.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a good one, and I think, like you said, we assume
Hmm.
it from the place that we are, but we need to help understand where they are in their understanding or journey.
Right, right. It's totally important. And everybody's in a
Mhm.
different place. And so I think um, we have to take that individual lens.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. That's a good one.
And then the third one is complex, and we talk about it a lot. And it's got a really simple line, title or subject, but it's got roots that I want to talk about, which is really creating a learning and development environment,
Mhm.
creating opportunities for people to learn. Now, that sounds like just giving continuing ed credits or a couple $1,000s to go take some classes. It's much more than that. It's allowing people to become comfortable in the world that you work in the environment that you're working in, allowing them to get confidence so they can speak up. It's difficult to have a voice when I don't understand what's going on in the meeting, but it's impossible for me to gain that knowledge if the organization doesn't have an environment that fosters that growth. You've got to create a situation and a mindset that not understanding something is okay for a period of time, but you can learn and grow and understand what's happening. So you are a more you are have if you have a voice that is important and be heard. And I think Educated people are more confident in what they want to say.
Yeah.
Educated people are going to have more to bring to the table, and they're going to have diverse points of view. And I think that that environment is going to create a place where people feel safe to speak.
It makes me think, and tell me if this is the right context to it, is if somebody comes to you that is a direct reporter, a team member of
Hmm.
yours, and they want to learn something or they have a question about something, instead of just giving them the answer,
Right. Yeah,
giving
that's
them a path to figuring it out themselves.
boy, technology people are the worst about that. I'm a million
Yeah.
times I've heard people say it's just easier if I do it for you, right? And if somebody comes to me with a
Yeah.
question, now like, I can give you the answer. The answer is 11, but let's talk about why it's 11, or let's talk about
Yeah.
why I know it's 11. Let me talk to you about where you learn that number the next time. Whatever it is, that's the leader leading by
Yeah.
example and creating an environment of growth and learning. And so it's
Yeah.
really transparent, and it seems very simple but so often leaders are asked questions, and those are opportunities for us to really create psychological safety in the workplace.
Yeah. This is maybe a silly example, but it makes me think of my father's in his 90s, and he's
Mhm.
like knows history. I don't even have the file folders for the nuances that he knows about all history of the
Very
world.
cool. Very
And
cool.
he'll very often say to me, just out of the blue, this weird, do you know what happened in 1453? That's a
Wow.
and it's so easy for me to say, no, I don't.
Right. Right.
And if he says, well, give me a couple guesses, it forces me to kind
Mm,
of pull from what I
sure.
do know to get
Right.
at least
Right.
close to it so that I don't look like I'm not.
Right.
So it's
Right.
interesting when you think about it like that. When you were talking, I was like, it's funny how we forget what happens to people when you
When you give.
allow them to think. When you
Mm,
give them the answer, it's almost like you're just satisfying what for the
right.
questioner. When you
Hmm.
make them, search for the answer, they have to discover more than you even intend.
Absolutely. And I think that's a great example of really helping people not only learn how to learn and learn how to grow. And I think as
Hmm.
leaders and, perhaps as parents as well, there's an opportunity for us to show people that this knowledge that we're imparting on you, or can be gained, is much more than the answer. It's the process by which you
Hmm.
get there. And ultimately, going back to the topic, our psychological safety, when we create an environment where people are at their
Yeah.
best, communicating with them and answering questions in that way is going to just it's going to pay dividends well beyond simply their ability to answer the question next time it's asked.
Yeah. This is really good. And before you go back to the three and give us kind of the
Mm,
synopsis, I do want to mention one thing that Amy did say in her remarks was that don't forget, as we get up as senior leaders, we have more confidence that our opinion matters
yeah.
because
Yep.
we have that experience and stuff. And so just that feeling of
Yeah.
it doesn't just transfer. And I think that
Absolutely right.
confidence is something that's built over time.
Sure is. And I think the confidence is created by leaders
Hmm.
in our teams by
Yeah.
creating this environment. And so, like, back to the my 3 points here. If you encourage open communication, lead by example, and ensure people are working in a safe place that they can learn, then that confidence is going to grow. Then you're going to get a more productive team. And I
Yep.
think you said at the top, if you have a diverse team that has diversity in thought and makeup and education and all of our good
Hmm.
factors, but they are not feeling safe to contribute
Hmm.
at their levels, then diversity is irrelevant, right?
Absolutely.
And so
Yeah.
this psychological safety trumps all things. And you can
Yes.
work very hard to create an environment which has all of the right people, all the right experiences, all the right points of view. But if there isn't that safety, then it's not going to work.
Yeah. And it's so important to continue to talk about and discover, to see the change, ever changing, so that you
Oh
ensure
yeah.
that it's top of mind. It's not something you
Hmm.
like put in place, set and go.
That's exactly right. This is the journey, not the destination, right? You
Yeah.
just don't say, "Hey, on Thursday we're going to create psychological safety, and then Friday we're going to have a staff meeting." Okay, that's not how
Yeah.
this works, right? And I
Yeah.
think it's like a lot of things. You've got to evolve and adjust, and it's a very agile practice, if you will. You've got to work it and see what's working for your teams and see what's not. And I think but that's the joy of being in a leadership role, right? We've
Yeah.
got to evolve along with the challenges.
Awesome. All right. I think these were really good
Good,
tips.
good stuff.
Good stuff. Well, thank you for joining us. We appreciate you. Our Quicksters.
Yeah, all you Quicksters out there,
All
thanks
you,
for dropping us some notes. I really appreciated the feedback. I'm actually helping a couple guys set up their own little podcasts that
nice.
people are asking about my mic. So thanks to you guys listening. Not that I know what I'm doing; it's just the mic. But hey, if it works for you guys, it works for me.
If you look like you're doing it right, sometimes that's half the battle.
90%
Uh,
of the battle.
but find us. We're both on LinkedIn. Feel free to shoot us a note, give us your feedback, give us a question to talk about. We love, love, love that. And share this with
Absolutely,
somebody that needs to be reminded about psychological safety because it's an important topic. And
super
we want to
important.
make sure that any impact and follow us because then you'll always be here when we're here.
Yep,
We
always
want
get
you to
the
be
latest.
here when we're here. So thanks for joining us. We appreciate you.